I never thought I'd one day sit in my own car, parked in front of the house where I no longer felt like I belonged, trying to gather my thoughts before walking inside. But that's exactly where I was, hands on the steering wheel, staring into the darkness, feeling that strange, sticky coldness in my chest that only appears when something in your life is broken, and you're just beginning to realize how badly. My name is Michael. I'm 43. I've always lived simply: work, home, stability. I wasn't a perfect husband, but I was honest, loyal, devoted. But apparently that wasn't enough. It all started a few weeks ago when my wife Emma became distant. Not harsh, not rude, just cold, as if someone had turned off the warmth inside her. I saw her hide her phone whenever I walked into a room. I heard her muted laughter late at night when she thought I was asleep. I noticed how she dressed differently, put on makeup before just go into the store, something she never used to do. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to become the kind of man who snoops through his wife's phone. But when the ground beneath your feet starts to crumble, instinct takes over. That evening, I decided to talk to her, calmly, without accusations. The moment I stepped inside the house, I knew something was wrong. Emma stood in the living room with her arms crossed. On the couch, suitcases. My suitcases. What is this? I asked, my voice low, almost unfamiliar. She didn't look away, she only exhaled, as if she'd finally made some important decision. Mike, we need a break. You've been suffocating me with your control. I need space. Control. Me, the man who always gave her freedom, supported her, worked 10 hours a day to make sure she never lacked anything. Emma, what control are you talking about? I felt something tighten inside me. What's happening? She turned away. It was an escape, the same turning away I had seen for weeks, but now it was open, undisguised. Just go for a while. Okay. Her voice trembled. I need to think. This is better for both of us. Then I saw at her phone on the table. A notification lit up the screen, a contact name hidden behind a single letter. D. She grabbed the phone quickly, but I already knew. My heart clenched like a fist inside my chest. D. I asked quietly, is that him? Emma said nothing, and that silence hurt more than any confession. I inhaled slowly. Then I picked up my suitcase and walked out, not because she asked me to, but because if I stayed one more minute, I'd break. As I stepped out the door, she said the final words that shattered me more than betrayal itself. Don't make a scene. It's only temporary. Temporary? Maybe for her, but not for me, because I already knew. This temporary break was the beginning of something that would change my life forever. I spent the first 2 nights in a cheap, tiny apartment across town, the kind of place where the walls are thin and everything smells faintly of fried food. But it was quiet. And I needed quiet more than anything. Every hour, the same questions circled in my head like vultures picking at a corpse. How long had she been lying to me? Who was this D? Why now? Why like this? I didn't want revenge. Not then. Back then, I only wanted the truth. On the 3rd day, I met my neighbor, an older man named Harold. He lived alone, spent most of his time sitting on the steps outside, reading the newspaper like it was still 1998. He nodded toward me when I passed by, his eyes narrowing as he studied my face. You look like a man carrying too much on his back, he said. I gave him a tired half-smile. Going through some marital issues. He nodded as if he already knew. Women don't just pull away, he said. Something or someone pushes them. I froze. It felt like he'd read my mind. I didn't reply. I just walked to my apartment and sat in the silence again. That night, lying on the uncomfortable mattress, I remembered something the night before Emma kicked me out. She told me she'd be working late, but she came home wearing perfume she never wore to work. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair messy in a way that didn't look like a long day at the office. It looked like someone's hands had been in it, and my mind had pushed that memory away. But now it came back like a knife dragged slowly across skin. I needed answers, not guesses. not assumptions. Answers. So the next morning, I drove to her office and waited in the parking lot across the street. Her SUV was already there. I didn't want to confront her, not yet, but I needed to see what she was doing, who she was with. At 11:40 a.m., she walked out, and she wasn't alone. A tall man in a navy suit walked beside her, brown hair, confident posture, hand on her lower back. They both laughed at something he said. My entire body went numb. She tilted her head toward him, way she used to tilt it toward me. He opened the car door for her. She smiled softly, the smile she used to give me in the first years of our marriage, when everything still felt real. And then she touched his arm. A gentle, familiar touch. A touch you don't give to just a colleague. Something inside me cracked out loudly, not violently, but like ice breaking under pressure. They drove off together. I didn't follow them. I just sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I had my answer. I knew who D was. Daniel Owens, her coworker, the man she always said was just a friend from marketing. I thought I'd feel anger, or betrayal, or hatred. But all I felt was nothing. A heavy emptiness. Because in that moment, I realized Emma didn't plan to think about us. She didn't want space. She wanted him. She just didn't know how to tell me directly, or maybe she didn't care enough to try. I stayed in the parking lot for another hour, staring blankly at the road. Then something inside me shifted. Not rage, not bitterness. Something colder, sharper, more controlled. I whispered to myself, "All right, Emma, if you want this path, fine, but you don't get to destroy me," and walk away smiling. At that moment, for the first time since everything began, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Not revenge yet, but the beginning of it. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calmness, like the storm had passed, but left a darker, quieter sky behind it. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't begging the universe for an explanation. I finally understood. Emma wasn't struggling. She wasn't conflicted. She had already moved on weeks, maybe months ago. I was the only one still grieving a relationship she had already buried. That clarity changed something in me. I decided the first thing I needed was information, real, solid, undeniable. Not speculation, not intuition. Facts. I didn't want to scream at her or confront her emotionally. That would give her power. What I needed was leverage. And deep down, I knew Emma. She cared more about her reputation than anything else. If she decided to leave me, she'd want to look like the good one, the hurt one, the victim. But she couldn't do that if the truth stood in her way. So I began documenting everything. The first step was simple. I went to her office building again, but not to spy this time. I walked inside confidently, wearing a clean shirt, carrying an empty folder like I belonged there. I knew the front desk staff. They'd seen me dozens of times when Emma and I were doing well. The receptionist, Mia, smiled awkwardly when she saw me. I could tell she knew something was wrong. "Hi, Mr. Lawson," she said. "Emma didn't mention you were coming by." "That's all right," I replied with an easy smile. "Just dropping off some documents she forgot." She hesitated, fear in her eyes. I already knew why. "She's out for lunch with Daniel," Mia said quietly, as if the words themselves might burn her mouth. I stepped a little closer, lowered my voice. "Mia, I'm not angry at you. I'm not angry at anyone here. I just need to know the truth. How long has this been going on?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know exactly, but it didn't start recently. We all kind of figured something was happening." She looked genuinely sad. I nodded. "Thank you." That was all I needed. I left the building without another word, walked to my car and sat there, no anger, just confirmation of what I already knew. Next, I drove to a coffee shop 2 blocks away, ordered an espresso I'd barely tasted, and opened my laptop. I created a folder on my desktop titled Emma Truth. Inside it, I stored pictures I took of her with Daniel the day before, screenshots of her cold messages, A timeline of her recent behavior changes, notes from Mia, records of late-night work hours that didn't make sense, the Uber receipts she forgot to delete piece by piece. The truth was forming a clear, undeniable picture. Around 5 p.m., my phone buzzed. Emma. For the first time in a week, I stared at the screen before answering. When I picked up, her voice was soft, calculated, practiced. Hey, I think we need to talk soon. I almost smiled. She finally realized I wasn't chasing her. We can talk whenever you want, I said calmly. She didn't expect that. I heard the confusion in her pause. Well, maybe tomorrow. Around lunch. Sure, okay, she said slowly. How are you? Better than I was. Another pause. She wasn't sure what version of me she was talking to anymore, and that unease was exactly what I wanted. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair. Emma wanted a controlled conversation where she could play the struggling wife, pretending she didn't know what she wanted. What she didn't realize was that the dynamic had already shifted. I wasn't the man begging for answers. I wasn't the man crying in a cheap apartment. Now, I was the man holding the truth in a folder with her name on it. But I still didn't want revenge, not yet. No, what I wanted was for her to reveal the truth herself, to confess, to say the words out loud. Because that would be the moment everything would change, and I planned to be ready. The next day, I woke up earlier than usual, not because I was anxious, but because I finally felt in control. Emma wanted to talk. Good, I wanted that too, but not for the same reason she did. For her, it was a performance. For me, it was a reveal. I showered, shaved, put on a clean black shirt, and looked at myself in the mirror. My face looked different, sharper, calmer, more focused. This wasn't the face of a man begging. This was the face of a man preparing for a conclusion. At exactly 12:40 p.m., I drove to the cafe she chose. Neutral ground, public, controlled, typical choice for someone who doesn't want a scene. When I walked in, she was already there. Same seat she always chose, back wall, far from the door, where she felt safest. She looked up when she saw me. Hi, she said softly. I sat across from her. She looked tired, or maybe guilty. Hard to tell with Emma. Guilt often looked like irritation on her face. You look different, she said. I feel different, I replied. She shifted uncomfortably, folding her hands. I wanted us to talk because things have felt off lately. I just looked at her, let her fill the silence. And I don't want this distance between us, she continued. I hate how cold things have gotten. Cold. That word almost made me laugh. I leaned forward slightly. Emma, you didn't call me here to talk about distance. Say what you really want to say. She inhaled sharply, as if I'd ruined her script. I don't know what's happening to us. Still acting confused. Still pretending. Are you sure you don't know? I asked calmly. She froze. Just for a second. Just long enough to confirm everything. I don't understand what you're implying, she said, voice tightening. I reached into my jacket slowly and placed a single printed photo on the table. Emma's face drained almost instantly. It was the one with her and Daniel walking out of the office together. Too close, his hand on her back, she stared at it, lips trembling slightly. Why? Why would you show me this? She whispered. Because I want you to say the truth, I replied. Out loud, her eyes flicked up to me, searching for anger, accusation, rage, but she found none. Just calm inevitability. She swallowed, looking back at the photo. What do you want me to say? Her voice was shaking. I leaned back in my chair. The truth, Emma, that's all. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then her jaw tightened in that way I recognized, the moment when she stopped being the victim and started being defensive. Nothing happened, she said finally. This is just taken out of context. A lie. Clean, immediate, rehearsed. I didn't react. I just slid a second photo out. This time, it was her at a restaurant with him. Wine glasses. Her hand touching his. Her eyes widened. Why are you doing this? She whispered, voice trembling. Now for real. I'm giving you a choice, I said. Tell me the truth. or I'll stop giving you chances entirely." She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking slightly. "Not crying, just panicking. You're making this into something it's not," she said, voice cracking. "I swear, it was innocent. Daniel is just Emma." I cut her off softly. "Look at me." She forced herself to. "You're not married to a fool." Her breath caught. That line broke something in her. "But why didn't you say anything earlier?" she whispered. "Because I wanted to see if you'd tell me the truth first. And what if I did? Then this conversation would be very different." She stared at me, eyes full of fear and calculation. Then she said the sentence that confirmed everything I already knew. "I didn't want to hurt you." I nodded slowly. "You already did." She looked down at her hands. "Can we fix this?" she asked quietly, almost pleading. That was the moment I understood something brutal but liberating. She didn't want me. She wanted the stability, the routine, the version of me who absorbed damage quietly. But that version died the moment I saw the first lie in her eyes. "We can talk more tonight," I said calmly. "At home." She nodded, relieved, so relieved it almost looked pitiful. We stood. She reached out to hug me. I didn't move. The confusion in her eyes said everything. "We'll talk later, Emma." She stepped back, hurt blooming on her face, but it wasn't heartbreak. It was fear. Fear of losing control. I walked out of the cafe with one thought burning in my mind. Tonight, I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't ask for explanations. Tonight, I would end something she never expected me to end. Not the relationship, her narrative. And once I took that away from her, everything else would crumble. When I got home that evening, the house felt staged. The lights were dimmed in that warm, soft way Emma always used when she wanted to steer an emotional conversation. Candles on the counter, wine glasses already set, a scene prepared for reconciliation. But she didn't realize something important. I wasn't coming home to reconcile. I walked and hung my keys, and she appeared from the kitchen doorway like she'd been waiting in position. "Hey," she said softly. I nodded and walked past her. Not cold, just unreadable. She followed me into the living room, her steps quick, nervous. "I'm glad you came home," she said. "I've been thinking all day about what you showed me." I sat down on the couch, hands folded. "Good," I said. "Then let's talk." She sat across from me, her posture small, controlled. Not because she was defeated, but because she wanted to look harmless. "I know how everything looked," she began, voice trembling in perfect rhythm. "And I know I should have told you sooner that things between me and Daniel got confusing. Confusing. They always used that word. I didn't mean for anything to cross a line," she continued. I don't know. It happened in a moment of weakness." "There were multiple moments," I replied quietly. She closed her eyes, pain visible. "Or guilt, or the fear of losing a life she'd gotten too comfortable living." "You're right," she whispered. "And I'm sorry. Truly, I never wanted to betray you." I watched her for a few seconds. "Emma," I said calmly, "I know about the hotel." She jerked back like I'd slapped her. What hotel?" she stammered. "The one in Midtown. Room 612. The color drained from her face. "You must have the wrong." I cut her off with one sentence. "They have cameras." Her lips parted, a faint gasp escaping. Not denial, not outrage, just terror. I leaned forward slightly. "You've been lying to me for months, not days, not weeks, months." She broke completely. A quiet sob ripped out of her as she covered her mouth. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She cried into her hands. I watched her cry for a long time. Not because I enjoyed it, but because it confirmed something I needed to see. She wasn't crying because she hurt me. She was crying because she'd been caught. When she finally looked up, eyes red and desperate, she whispered, "Please, just tell me what to do. I'll do anything to fix this." I exhaled slowly. "Emma, I'm not here to fix anything." She froze. "What do you mean?" I stood up and walked to the desk drawer. When I returned, I placed a small stack of papers on the table. Her eyes widened. "That's your emails," I said. "The ones you deleted." And the messages you didn't know were backed up. Her hands shook as she reached for the papers, but I pulled them back. No, I said softly. You don't need to read them. You wrote them. Tears streamed down her face. Why? Why did you bring these? What are you doing? I looked at her with a calm she didn't understand. I wanted you to hear the truth before the consequences arrive. What consequences? She whispered, voice trembling. The ones you earned. She stared at me in pure confusion and fear. You think this ends with a conversation? I asked that. She shook her head, terrified. I don't understand. You will? I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up her phone and placed it in front of her. Unlock it. She hesitated. Emma, I said quietly. Now? She entered her code with shaking fingers. I took the phone and scrolled until I found what I needed. Please don't, she whispered. Please. But I waited until the icon turned blue and the upload started. Her breath caught when she saw what I was doing. You're sending it, she asked. To who? To him, I said. To his wife, to HR, and to anyone else whose life you've been playing with. She lunged forward, trying to grab the phone, but I stepped back. No, I said sharply. Sit. She sank onto the couch, crying harder. You'll ruin everything, she whispered. My job, my reputation, everything. You should have thought about that before the hotel, I said. She stared at me with pure, helpless disbelief. She had expected anger, shouting, maybe even begging. But not this. Not the cold, calculated dismantling of the world she'd built on lies. This is cruel, she sobbed. No, I said. Cruel would be lying to someone who trusted you. Cruel would be making someone feel crazy for noticing what was right in front of him. Cruel is what you did. She buried her face in her hands, shaking violently. And what about us? She cried. Is this it? Are you done with me? I walked toward the door, keys in hand. Emma, this ended the moment you decided I wasn't enough. She lifted her head, tears streaking her cheeks. So that's it. That's it. I opened the door. Her voice cracked behind me. Please, don't do this. I didn't look back. I closed the door behind me, stepped into the cool night air, and exhaled the breath I'd been holding for months. Not relief, not triumph, just clarity. She destroyed my heart. I destroyed her lies. And somehow, that felt like the closest thing to balance we would ever have.